was like 20 something. It was like
I
last
have
year,
no
right?
clue. Yeah, yeah, it was
30?
definitely a lot. I think earlier.
31. Wow.
Okay, that's further than I thought.
That's awesome. All right, welcome guys to the Bearzi podcast. Today on episode 56, we have my buddy Jasper, who last appeared on the podcast on episode 31 last year. Jasper is an entrepreneur from, I don't know if I can say this right, Tbilisi, Georgia? Is that
Tbilisi.
correct?
Yeah,
Tbilisi?
yeah.
So Jasper is happy to come on the pod and we can have a good conversation. And I guess to start, are you still living in Tbilisi?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting because the last time we spoke, I was literally kind of in the very, very early stages of my entrepreneurial journey. Arrived in Tbilisi like three, I think we did in like April, May, June, something like that. Like, I don't know the exact, but I was living abroad for like 4 months. Yeah, now still here, met a lot of great people, and kind of got stuck here. So
So
yeah.
is Georgia like I remember last time you were talking about living there, and it was awesome. Is this like your forever home?
No, not that. It has a lot of benefits. Uh, in general, I like to travel around a lot. A lot of my friends here, what they'll do is there is some periods where you don't really want to be here. So like
Mhm.
August right now, it's like 35-ish degrees, so it's like very, very hot. Uh, so that's not ideal. Winter is kind of, it's not terrible, but it's just kind of meh. So that's a nice time to kind of travel to Asia or go somewhere. And that's kind of nice here as well because you're kind of in between Europe and Asia, so it's kind of easy to travel back and forth.
Mm. Yeah, that sort of sounds similar to Canada. Our summers are pretty hot and our winters are awful. So it's like a
Hmm.
lot of people usually get out of Canada during the winter. And for even for me right now, I think it was like 34 degrees yesterday
Okay, I didn't
in
know Canada
Toronto.
got this hot.
Yeah, it gets really hot for only 2 months, and that's it. There's like
Okay,
2 months. It's like really hot, July, August. But then like 6 months of the year, the weather sucks, right? And that's when usually most people leave, and that's why I'm always interested, especially for like entrepreneurs like yourself, like where you decide to live, because I know so many guys that have like either moved to Dubai, moved
hmm,
to Texas in the United States. I know one guy that moved to like Malta because apparently Malta has like no country income tax or something like that. I feel like that's a very
interesting
popular trend for entrepreneurs, right?
for sure. Yeah, it's just in most countries, I think, like with the way taxes are set up, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Like you can, for me in the Netherlands, like I can live there with, I'm not even sure, but I think the percentages, well, the highest tax bracket is like 55%. So it's kind of like, in general, you'll be paying like 35, 40% of your money will go away. Rather, here in Georgia, I'm paying 1%. So that's a pretty big difference.
Wow,
Dubai is like
1%.
9%. Yeah, it's a big shift. So this is up until 160K. So when you go above that, that's when it starts to become 15 to 20%. And so if you're really making a lot of money with your business, then it's useful to probably relocate somewhere else. But still, it's like 15, 20 to 20%. So it's still, yeah, not a bad deal. And it's money you take out of the business. So as long as the money stays in the business, you don't pay any taxes on it. You can just reinvest it through the entity. So
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
there's
pretty
some.
much like me. My business makes no
Hmm.
money. Every income or revenue that it generates, I just reinvest. I reinvest it into gear, reinvest it into like software, or like maybe
Yeah,
just get someone to edit for me. Like I'm always just reinvesting the money that the business generates, and I'm hoping like maybe one day it will generate a significant amount of revenue where I can maybe live off of that full time. The dream for all entrepreneurs, right?
hmm, yeah, yeah. Same here. It's more so learning on my end. Um, but yeah, because I mean, my content is very. I have a pretty decent microphone. I hope that's true with the sound that's coming through. But other than that, it's just put on Loom, have useful documents, and kind of prioritize the value of what you're saying rather than the combination of the value and the prettiness and uh, kind of the entertainment effect.
Hmm. Yeah, I learned that the hard way because I'm really into like videography and filmmaking.
Mm.
So I was so into like the gear and lenses and special effects where the substance and the value in the content I was making was really lacking. And I think that's why sort of like my channel did so poorly for so long. And it wasn't until recently where I ditched all the special effects and it's just like me sitting in a room speaking my truth, just trying to share the most beneficial or high value facts that I know. And then those videos started to perform way better. And so I always try to
Mm.
tell people in like the YouTube space, the camera doesn't matter, the super picture quality, the special effects that you do in Adobe After Effects or Premiere, it doesn't really matter. It's all about what is the value that your content is providing. I'm sure that you can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. There is an interesting thing where do you know Riandoris?
No.
Okay, so this is a guy who was doing direct response marketing for the longest time, like scaled his business up a lot through like advertising and but didn't really believe in content. And so recently he hired Andrew Kirby, who is maybe a little bit more well known. So he's
Yep,
very good
yep.
on YouTube growth. And I think he has like 10 videos live right now and he has like 30,000 subscribers or something. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's, like an impressive amount for the amount of videos. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
And the interesting thing is that they really combined, okay, like boom, like unique useful insight, unique useful insight, unique useful insight, like one after the other combined with the video editing. And then I guess that's where like real magic happens. But last
Hmm.
like 2 weeks ago, I watched one of your videos and it was just, video of you walking in the woods, like talking about like, I think like an experience you had. And it's just, interesting how those videos like can perform just as well.
Hmm. Yeah, YouTube's funny game. It's something that I love. Like, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy making like a high quality, polished, cinematic type video. That's a lot of fun for me. But the problem is those edits take like 30 hours. It's a lot
Mm.
of time and work to put into that type of stuff, right? And then I was realizing, man, all these videos that I put a tremendous amount of effort into, they perform so poorly. And then I have these dumb videos where I'm just sitting in front of a camera like this. It may be record for like 10, 15 minutes and it outperforms the polished video like 20 times over. So I got to a point where, should I really start making more videos centered around value rather than videos that look cinematic or pretty, right? And so I've sort of come to that crossroads in my content creation career. And I guess that's why things are starting to pick up.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of similar with me, right? Right. It's just right now I just use Google Documents. I use those Google Documents or like an Obsidian or like just some type of like text-based document. Open that, throw on Loom, start recording. I'll probably make like 10 cuts throughout the video. Takes like 1 hour to edit, post it, and of course I'm only at like I think my subscriber count is like 35 or something right now, so it's very low. But like the amount of views I'm getting on some of these videos, and I'm only 10 videos in right now because it's interesting because when we last spoke, I was starting to use YouTube. Then for like half a year, I think longer, 8 months, 9 months, only a few months ago, I started to use YouTube. Okay, this is a real vehicle to grow a business. And definitely think so for any entrepreneur out there, like hop on YouTube because you see it as well with like all the very smart people in the online marketing space, all the people that were like early movers, like Nick Cosmin, Sam Ovens, you see it with Alex Hormozi, all of these people, they're now shifting to content creation rather than paid advertising. Really sounds like that is, first of all, a more enjoyable way to grow a business, I think, because it's a lot more genuine. Like nobody really wants to see ads, generally speaking. And cost is lower. Uh, I think there's a lot of benefits to that.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm all in on the whole YouTube game. I feel like radio, television, and even those commercials you have on TV, all that is going to become obsolete. That's all an outdated
Mm-hmm.
way of advertising and marketing. I feel like everything is in YouTube. All these companies, like I get emails every once in a while now about people like reaching out to me and they're like, hey, can you, I don't know, talk about this product? Like everyone is realizing the traffic that YouTube generates. And it's interesting that you mentioned Alex Hormozy because I was watching one of your videos and I think it was something about your business. And you were talking about how Alex Hormozy said that whenever you're creating something or starting your business, you want to think about it in the longest time frame possible. You
Hmm.
don't want to think about your business in 6 months. You want to think about it in like not 6 years, for example. Like what is your business going to look like long term? And that really hit a spark with me because I never thought about that before. I always thought about my business on like a week to week basis. Oh, this week I'll make this video. This week I'll do this podcast. This week I'll maybe do a newsletter. I never thought like, what is my business going to look like long term in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? Like, what is that long time frame looking like? And I've been going down the Hormozy rabbit hole. That guy is a plethora of information. Is he one
Hmm.
of your people you that inspires you?
For sure. I actually was very lucky to find him when he was like at like 30,000 subscribers or something, like very, very small at the time. And I've referred in, I mean, he blew up very fast, but I think in the past like 1.5 year, I've referred at least to like 30 people to that guy. I was like, okay, you have to watch his video. You know, his book I have in like audio form, book form, hard copy, like Kindle. Yeah, that guy is, he knows his stuff
Oh yeah, he's
for sure.
he's interesting because he looks like a meathead. Like he looks like your
Hmm.
typical gym bro, right? And
Yeah.
normally when you stereotype like a gym bro, you think like someone that's, really disciplined, really strong, hits the gym, but is not quite intelligent. But this guy like completely flips the narrative on that. He's just a wealth of insight and information and even just like his simple tips for starting a business, ways to think about business. I just find his stuff very very interesting, and I keep going back to his work and even his little clips, like
Hmm.
those little shorts, those YouTube shorts type of
Yeah. His
content.
shorts are the
Even
only
though,
ones I watch because all the other ones are usually
yeah,
garbage. He actually gives like value and
dude, I despise TikTok and all that stuff. I deleted it from my phone.
hmm.
I don't like the short form
Same.
content because it's like pranks and entertainment. It's comedy, it's dancing, it's stupid stuff, but like there's no real value in that. That's why I like the long form type of content. But Hormozy, I actually do watch some of his shorts, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah, exactly the same. I just had some thoughts around like because you were saying about the long term thinking, um, and one thing that I really messed up like in the period between our last podcast and now was the long term thinking, which is yeah why I'm really like big on it now because before I was kind of thinking, okay, like how do I, get clients as fast as possible? And to some extent it worked. Like I got, quite a few clients in the last year, but it's not like the amount I could have had if I was just steady building one foot in front of the other. And the long-term thinking, what it mainly does is just it allows you to kind of negate like what do you call it? Like the grass is green on the other side, like shiny object syndrome. And so for the longest time, I was constantly like, oh, I need to do this, or this thing doesn't work. I need to do this. Whereas, everything works pretty much. Even though we just said like content creation is superior to advertising, it doesn't mean that advertising doesn't work. Like if you're a level 10 advertiser, of course, you're going to make way more money doing advertising than content creation. Same with like content creation. Like we just said, okay, we don't like TikTok, but like, you know, a lot of people can make TikTok work. And so I think it's just about, yeah, and that's the main lesson from Hormozy as well, just doing more and more of the same thing until you become so good at it that you're just going to create amazing results because you did it so much.
Hmm. Yeah, you know what's interesting about that too? Like everyone knows this idea of niching down. Like everyone knows, like, oh, you should niche down, pick a market, pick one thing that you can become really good at. It's better to master one skill than to be well versed in 100 different skills. Obviously, like you want to be exceptional at one thing. And for
Mhm.
the longest time, I never applied this to my work. I was like all over the place. I did like fitness content, I did like videography content, self improvement content, cold shower stuff, meditation, gambling, psychedelics. Like I had like 20 different niches on my channel. And then I was like, man, what am I doing? Like what is going on here? And it wasn't until I thought about my channel, like what does this look like long term? What is the 5 year time frame of this channel where it can be successful? And so I really started to niche down and get rid of the topics that I don't really love or enjoy. Like I don't get me wrong, I do love fitness. I do enjoy that whole world, but that's just not me. I don't have that extreme passion for it as someone like say like a Jeff Nippard, for example, right? Who just makes fitness content all the time. And so I've completely sort of dropped those sub niches and I've just been really trying my best to niche down on these two things of like gambling and psychedelics. I know it's kind of like weird, but maybe that is what I can provide that level of mastery in my lane, if that makes any sense.
I was curious about that. Like, what is the what led you to kind of uh, combine those two? Like, and so I guess the psychedelics are like a tool to deal with the gambling, or like how should I see that? Because I haven't seen that much of your content around that because that's not really like my type of lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in a way they're kind of related because I have this, I guess you'd call it a problem where I love to gamble. I love it. Like I every single day if I'm playing a game of cards with my family, watching the basketball game with my brother, doing something with my friends, it's fun. But if we wager money on the activity, it just kind of ignites this enthusiasm in me. It makes everything so much more enjoyable in my life. And I realize that's one of my flaws as a human being. It's because of this background I have in poker, right? And
Mhm.
so it was like a couple of years ago, I got really deep into psychedelics and psychedelics in the sense of medicinal use, not recreationally. Like I know a lot of people go to the Netherlands, for example, or Amsterdam to do a bunch of psychedelic mushrooms, but that's more recreational. Like you want to go have fun, see something, maybe you go to a concert and you see all these crazy vibrant colors and hallucinations. Whereas there is this medicinal side where the mushrooms kind of forces you to face your flaws as a human being, and a big part of that helped me just to be a better man, right? And it helped me control my addictions and my impulses that I have in my life. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting because no one talks about the cure or the way to help your addiction by using psychedelics. Like this is not like something that you normally hear about. But so many people, if you have like an alcohol addiction, a drug addiction, a video game addiction, you just like keep going after that dopamine hit, right? But you never develop the mental health that allows you to say no to all those things, right? And the mushrooms really taught me that. They're like, hey, why are you playing 25 hours of video games every week when you have a daughter? Or hey, why are you gambling on the weekends all the time when you have a mortgage to pay? Or hey, what about this? Or hey, what about that? And it really forced me to confront my shortcomings as a human being, and it's improved my life in so many ways. And so I was like, I want to I need to share this or talk about this more, right? Because whenever you think about psychedelics, you always see like, oh, I saw the universe and I saw God and I saw all this crazy
Mhm.
stuff and there's a comet flying. You know what I mean? So that's like the general narrative you hear around psychedelics, where I'm trying to go down this obscure lane of medicinal use for overcoming your addictions. I'm trying to build that connection.
That is super interesting. So I've had like in the past I've had like a very big video game addiction, uh, weed as well to some extent, but I wouldn't really call it like an addiction at this point because in a lot of ways weed has helped me a lot to get the same insights I think that like psychedelics. I mean, is weed a psychedelic? Is it like classified as that?
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
If you take a lot of it.
Okay. So maybe like microdosing psychedelics. Let's define it as that then. But with yeah, weed has been very helpful in kind of creating that insight for myself with like video game addiction and seeing like okay, because I used to play like 120 hours a week or something, like literally like insane, like just
Damn.
nonstop, pretty much. Of course, if I didn't have school or something, otherwise it would be like a little bit lower. But yeah, lots and lots of hours. And like looking back, it's still kind of easy to fall back into that, in at least that line of thinking. But it's also very easy to look and be like, okay, do I care about like any of the times that I've played literally any game in the past? It's kind of like realistically, there's one game that I played at a pretty high level with a lot of friends, and so then the actual connection with those friends and kind of having, because I never did team sports, so kind of like competitive e-gaming is kind of, this gives you the same effect of like, oh, you're with a bunch of guys and you're competing to win, and that's kind of uh, that gives a lot of joy. But the actual gaming itself, it's kind of like, okay, that added nothing to my life, right? And same with, I made a list of the amount of money I spent in video games. I think it's like $6,000 or something. It's like kind of like, okay, if I invested this into, if I didn't spend so much time doing dumb stuff, I would have invested this into business or crypto or whatever, because I was on the internet all the time, so I could have definitely found that and put myself so far ahead. So it's just, I think a lot of this stuff is just, for me at least, it's about like reframing and kind of seeing things from the lens that is most useful.
Wow, 120 hours, dude. That's insane. That's like from morning to night, 7 days a
Hmm.
week. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So how are you now with video games?
So I got like a very nice laptop a while back that
Uh
didn't
oh.
go good for a while, but yeah, like it was literally just the problem that I had with business for a while was that I didn't have enough momentum. And so, because I didn't have any momentum and I was doing it for a while already, it kind of caused me to create a lot of like resistance towards doing the things that I needed to do to build the momentum to actually get to lift off, and then use that momentum to just get more and more and more. Because at that point, you get a lot of more dopamine. It's a lot more stimulating. It's kind of like, okay, I see that my inputs have led to a certain result. So now let's repeat more inputs, more inputs, more inputs. So we get more and more results. Whereas if you put a lot of effort in and you get zero result on paper, of course you're building up a skill set and other important things, but you're not seeing the cash in the bank build up, or not nearly as much as you want. Then that's kind of like a different or difficult, uh, difficult, how do I want to say, like time to be in. But once you get through that, and that's kind of what happened recently, like I started to build more momentum, and then it was very easy to once again get out of that.
Hmm.
And another
Yeah,
thing
I
is
can
just,
relate to that. Keep going.
like the dopamine restriction is very useful for that as well, for me at least. So just, I've noticed, as someone, I think it's because of my ADHD, because that's kind of what you, there's some very like esoteric type of stuff happening on the internet, where there's a bunch of random ADHDers doing research on themselves and kind of the ADHDers around them. So this is very like not scientific whatsoever. But what you notice a lot is with ADHD, I think this is, to some extent, this is documented, but as like someone with ADHD, you're a lot more susceptible to getting addicted to things. Like that is actually scientifically uh, like well documented. But what that means is, at least for me, there is no balance. There is no, oh, I'll play 10 hours a week, or it's probably the same with you with like gambling. There is no like, oh, I'll do this for X amount of hours, because then it's just not controllable. So for me, the easiest thing I can do is just not do it whatsoever. And if I do fall into a bad habit, like switch the environment, because when you switch your environment, it's very easy to rewrite your associations. What you see with like Vietnam War veterans, like the what was it, like heroin, morphine, something very addictive that they were using a lot of there.
Yeah,
The moment
heroin.
they went back home, heroin. Okay, the moment they went back home, like zero issues. So that's the same thing with any addiction, really. Like if you switch your environment, you go to a different country, you go to a new apartment or whatever, and you immediately start to create a right kind of loop, and you take out all of the triggers that you used to have. It's very easy to overcome those past issues, in my experience.
Hmm. Yeah, that Vietnam heroin story. I've read about that before. That is super interesting. Where like all 90% of the soldiers were using opioids or heroin, and then when
Hmm.
they were coming back to the States, they were in fear that everyone was going to come with a heroin addiction. but the environment was in the war. Sitting around with all the guys, the heroin is there, so you do it. But then you go back home to your family, your house, or whatever, your community, and because the environment is so different, the heroin addiction didn't persist. And I always found that super interesting. And that also applies to like addictions, like video games, for example. Like I'm the same. I have friends that play, modern warfare at night. Maybe they play like an hour or two. They'll play a couple of games, and I can't play with them anymore because we'll play 2 games, and then they're like, "Okay, boys, like see you tomorrow. Have a good night," and they all log off, and then I'm still on by myself, and then I play a third game, and then I play a fourth game, and then I play a 10th game, and then all of a sudden it's 6 a.m. Right, and so that self-destructive behavior is something that I have as like obsessive compulsive. Like I can't do anything halfway. I can't just make YouTube for fun. I can't just get into videography for fun. I can't just make a podcast for fun or video games. I have to go all the way. Everything in my life is so extreme. I don't have any like hobbies or pastimes that I just kind of do for fun. Everything is just all in or nothing. And so that's why this whole modern addiction stuff is very interesting to me, especially for young men, because you have video game addiction at an all-time high, porn addiction, TikTok addiction, and even things like Uber Eats or going to the movies. You have Netflix, right? You don't even have to do anything anymore. You can wake up, call Uber Eats, get your meal delivered to you. You can watch a Marvel movie on Disney Plus on your television in your living room, and you don't have to do anything, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, I feel like this modern addiction thing that society is going through nowadays, it's scary, man. It's so scary, and if you don't have a level of self awareness to resist those things or try to implement some of these strategies of changing your environment, right? You can ruin your life with this stuff because it's not going to get like video games aren't going to get less addictive. They're just getting
Yeah.
bigger and better and just so much more fun and immersive, and it's just going to get worse, right? And I think it's extremely important that people talk about this type of stuff, right?
For sure. It's interesting because I was talking with my dad about this like a while back, and he was actually shocked. He was like, "You can't control yourself like that." Like he was just because he did not understand, like right, like he's like, "Oh, I'll play a game for like 2 hours, and then I'm off and I'll do something else." And like he'll play a game like 6 months in it or 6 times in a year. And all these types of different things where he's very much like that, being able to balance things, and it's interesting how there is, I think, very much like 2 types of people like that. But I would also presume, because from what I see like around me, the people that are able to kind of be that like zero and like kind of binary about things, those are like a lot of entrepreneurs as well, from what I see.
Oh,
So
I
I'm not sure
see.
if there's a correlation like that, or my sample size is not that big, but it's I do see
Yeah,
that a
that's
lot.
that's interesting because the bunch of entrepreneurs that I know, they're sort of in the same boat. They're kind of like all in on a
Hmm.
couple things, and they're all out on a bunch of others. Whereas I don't want to say normal friends, like like people that have like a normal job, work a 9 to 5. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but like let's say like the typical average North American life, a lot of those guys, they'll wake up, have breakfast, drive to work, finish work at 5, get home, have dinner, and then you have a cup 2 3 hours, play video games, watch Netflix, and go to bed. And for them, they can do that. Whereas for someone
Hmm.
like us, it's very hard. Maybe it's because we don't have that same sort of structure or force routine. Like when you have a day job that starts at 9, you got to go to bed. Like you can't stay up past
Hmm.
1 a.m. Like you have to make it in to the office. You have bosses, you have deadlines, you have meetings. Like you have to perform, right? So maybe there's like that extra pressure that, say, someone like me and you wouldn't have, where our structure and discipline, it's self-regimented, right? Like I don't have a boss. I don't have a YouTube boss that I have to answer to, right? I can
Hmm.
kind of just do whatever I want. I can talk about whatever I want. I can film a video whenever I want. So maybe that sort of comes into play when it comes to entrepreneurs. But yeah, just like you, I have a very small sample size as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
So,
I kind of
anyways,
thought, but I completely lost it. Anyways.
it's all good. Um, one thing I also wanted to talk to you about was you started making some videos on your channel about fitness.
Hmm.
So and also you changed the name of your channel to Jasper, and then there's like a slash health optimization. So are you
Hmm.
kind of gearing towards the entrepreneur building a business niche plus fitness? Is that like your direction?
Um, yeah, not no. So let's backtrack. So the previous business that I had was a performance coaching business. And so how I got into that was I was doing perform or personal training for a long time. I went to the gym for a long time. I did a lot of personal growth, read a lot of books, got some insights. Then became a mentee of a mentor who is like an actual legit high performance coach. Who's worked with like Olympians, CEOs, celebrities, like really like high level people. Uh, Learned a lot from him, and then I kind of went into this entrepreneur world. Like, hey, I'm ready now. Like, let's take on some clients and let's change their kind of like mindset and perspectives and like everything around performing at your highest level. And so what I found was that it was very difficult for me to get clients, and I got a few clients and I got them a lot of great results. But the problem that I had was that this is an insight one of my friends gave me, was like, hey, your believability in this area just isn't high. Like, especially for the type of clientele that I want to attract. It doesn't really matter, whether they're like 40 or 30 or 20, but just higher level business people. Like, why should they listen to a 23, 24 now, a year old who, doesn't have like a huge track record like my mentor had, who, there's not really like a lot of what you like to call like status delta. So like the difference in status in this specific area where I haven't worked with Olympians and I haven't worked with, I've worked with a few CEOs. So my believability is starting to go up, but it's not like huge at this point. And so what I realized is, okay, anyone can look at me and they can, they can come to a conclusion that it's likely that I can help them get relatively jacked and help them get in shape and get healthy. And so the kind of overall thing that I'm delivering is still pretty much the same to a large extent. It is a little bit more focused on actual health optimization. And so that's also what my content is about. So it's fully on, how to optimize your health and how to actually get the most amount of energy, most amount of focus, best body possible. And then on the back end, I just use the performance coaching to create the behavior change that we need to see in clients to actually create the results that we want. Because most of it, a lot of people, I even had an old client who came back to me a while back, and I think like, so we didn't have sessions for a while. He came back like a month ago. We started having sessions again, and there was like so much stuff that we already went through and he had optimized before, and now he didn't. And he came to me. He was like, "Okay, this is a mess. This is a mess. This is a mess. Help!" He was middle of the pack, like 50. He is in a team, so he's not a entrepreneur technically. He is like an entrepreneurial minded person. He's like a sales closer, so it's definitely like a good role to set yourself up to become an entrepreneur. But what he did was he joined this team of like 50 plus salespeople. And so he was middle of the pack, like for a long, long time. And we had one session together. So came back, had one session. And literally the week that we had the first session, he became number 5 out of these 50 people, whereas before he was number 25. So it's literally like accountability and just creating the behavior change outside of the knowledge is way more important.
That's interesting. So when you're talking about clients and sessions, is this like online calls, or do you do like
Mhm.
in-person coaching too? What does that look like?
No. Yeah, literally everything online at the moment. There are some things that I'm considering where, very, very high level, it would be cool to fly out potentially. Here in like Tbilisi, there's a few entrepreneurs, but most of them I'm friends with, and they're also just like jack dudes who are interested in like biohacking and like, so it's not really like my target audience. And so this is not really the place for that, because also for the actual like local people, buying power is not that high, and they generally do not speak English, so it's kind of like a hard place
Mm.
to sell. So yeah, just online everything at the moment, and that works well as well, because people can just record themselves. I can get feedback on or give feedback on their technique, and outside of that, I just see their numbers. They report everything to me, and it's very easy to kind of make adjustments without having to be in person.
Okay, I see. So it's sort of like an online coaching business. But what about,
Mhm.
are you, do you have any plans for like courses, like online courses? Is that in the horizon?
Um, kind of. What I prefer is, so the model that Hormozy has is very good, I think, where he basically gives pretty much all of the information up front. And I mean, he kind of says that it's not completely true, right? Like the main thing is that he gives a lot of the what, he gives the principles behind what works. He doesn't exactly say, do this and then do this and then do this. To some extent, he does. And so I think that model is very good where you give most of the information up front because, right, like that increases the shareability of what you're doing. And mainly the implementation is where like the added value comes in. Now, the problem with that is that the scalability of that is lower if you do it yourself. So I can't, right, I can have like 20 clients at one point at most, unless I have like shorter sessions with a few people. So then the numbers go a little bit up. But if I want to give very high quality sessions to people, that's pretty much my cap. And so at that point, there's a few different options. So what I'm considering is either have different coaches at one point that I'm going to start training, or have more type of like a community type thing where, okay, you can have some information, more specific advice on the back end, but you also have the actual community of people who are all doing the same thing. You can maybe have like accountability groups or accountability partners or specific coaches that have like, maybe a dozen people that they're all constantly staying up to date with. So I think that is something like that is a lot more valuable because it's more implementation based because most people know what they need to do.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I'm interested in this because I'm sort of, I wouldn't say on the same path, but I'm working on a course right now, and
Mm.
I started offering coaching sessions currently on my website, but I don't want to have like a ton of clients, for example, that where it uses up all my time because I find one-on-one coaching very time consuming, right? Because it has to be in the moment. You have to be on camera. You're talking to people. Whereas a lot of other entrepreneurs I've talked to, the value of making like a course is that you record a whole bunch of videos. You have this thing, and it's just there, and it's passive, right? And so my
Mm-hmm.
thought was make a course where you have all the value, right? Sell that. And then if people require a more intimate one on one type of session, then the one on one coaching is there. So I think
Mm.
that's the direction that I'm sort of leaning to. But building like a community is interesting because a lot of guys do that on Discord, right? I always hear what people like, people tell me all the time, oh, create a Discord, start a little
Mm.
community where you can have these little, sub conversations and talk about stuff like that. So I'm still trying to figure out like what is the best business decision to make moving forward because all this stuff is tricky, as you know, right? You have to like
Yeah.
test a bunch of things. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't, and who knows? Who knows what will happen in the future? But are you going down? Are you thinking about making a Discord? Is that something that you want to do?
Not a Discord, but I am literally in the process of launching my school community. So that is something that I'm working towards. I do think that there is a lot of value in the main problem I see with if you just have LinkedIn or YouTube, Facebook, especially YouTube, right? Like it's kind of difficult to get a lot of market feedback. If you're trying to become a content creator, primarily, there's a lot of analytics that I think can guide you pretty well. But if you're specifically looking to get paying clients, the conversion mechanism isn't really there. Where you can do like a call to action of like, hey, book a call with me if you want to get help with this thing, and people can go ahead and do that. But what's missing there is you can't really start the conversation, and so you basically have to rely on all of the copywriting that you have and all of the value that you provide for people to want to take action. And so it's very much like a gamble to some extent, where if people join your community, you can start the conversation. You can be like, hey, what do you actually need? And if 20 people come to you and they say, hey, I need this thing, and they start to explain their pain points to you with their specific wording, you start to notice like, oh, these 10 people are using this type of wording of their problems, then it's very easy to kind of create an upward feedback loop of target audience understanding, which I think is at least what I learned from some of the courses I've been through, some of the mentors that I've had. That is like one of the most important drivers for success in your business.
I see. Yeah, it's interesting because I also sort of like maybe I'll just kind of break it down what I do. At least you can give some feedback. Is that I get these emails from people all the time. They're like, "Hey, I watched so and so YouTube video about gambling or about mushrooms or something, and I'm struggling through this." And they tell me their story, right, and the problems that they have. And so I'm like thinking, okay, what is a solution that I can provide for their problem? But the one thing is that I've received their email address, right? So I add that to my newsletter, which is one of like my sales funnels, right? I send out like a newsletter. It's like the big funnel where information is free. Well, sales funnels, right? And so I'm sort of building up not a community per se, but like a list of people on my email list that I can reach out that's independent of YouTube, because I don't want to rely on social media entirely, right? Because if, say, YouTube bans my account, right? One day, maybe they say, oh, we don't like videos about psychedelic mushrooms, right? Or, oh, we don't like people who talk poorly about gambling because now online sports betting is becoming popular. And say I get banned, right? Then I lose that connection to all my subscribers, right? So I want to build a community is a wrong word, but I want to build a list or a way to communicate with my people that's independent of these social media companies, that's free of that. So if I ever do get screwed over or banned one day, that I can kind of reach out to my people. And it's interesting because I've been getting demonetized recently too, wow. which kind of sucks.
So this sounds pretty realistic as well. I was laughing earlier, then I thought, okay, of all of the ridiculous stuff I see online, like this is probably very likely to happen eventually.
Yeah. So they sent me a bunch of messages. I got demonetized on like 10 different videos, and I've been flagged for a bunch of, it sucks because part of that is I do live streams, right? And people will ask me questions in a live setting, and I give my honest, authentic answer. And sometimes the questions I get are controversial. They're either political or whatever it may be, right? And YouTube doesn't like that, and you get flagged. So going back to the business, like I'm trying to, I guess, like you build this way of connecting with my tribe of people, right? And I'm doing that through like the newsletter. Now I don't know if that's the best way about doing it. Like, are newsletters still beneficial? Like, do most entrepreneurs still promote this idea of like building a newsletter, building an email list? Is that still a big thing?
There's a lot of people that are doing it. I just think even from like a kind of like evolutionary perspective, like people want to belong, right? And so it's with the newsletter, like you still don't really have that feedback mechanism where it's cool that people vibe with your content enough that they go to find your email and shoot you an email, explain their problems. That's very cool, but like you're probably still missing out on a lot of these different type of stories, I would suspect, because you don't have like a place where people can just go to and start a conversation with you. And so that's, I think, the cool thing with like a community where it's not even just about capturing leads and making money and all this stuff. Like it's literally like, hey, this is a place for people to come together who have this thing to solve, who identify as this, or like, some type of common thing that combines them and like, that actually connects them and makes them kind of similar enough to where they can probably get a lot of value from one another and grow together. And so with a newsletter, it's, of course, if the newsletters are very valuable, you're still going to read them. But also, I think I personally do the inbox zero thing, but I think most people, they just have a huge inbox where they might read like 1 out of 10 emails if it sparks their curiosity, rather than keeping track of who they're subscribed to, and like I'm subscribing to everybody pretty much, and that type of stuff. So then having a community is kind of cool where people don't just come for you; they come for everybody else that's in that community, plus the value,
Mm,
plus you potentially.
that's I get that. You know, when you say community, the first thing I think of is, you know, Hamza.
Hmm.
So he has that thing. It's called like Adonis School. That's like his
Yeah.
community that he's built. So on the last podcast, I had a guy on from the UK, and he is part of the Adonis Academy or Adonis School, and he's like he pays for the membership for it. And I was super intrigued because like, oh, you know, how is that going for you? Because he's like 18. I think he's like 18, like a young kid, right? And he swears by it. He's like, there's all these people just like me trying to escape the system, trying to be healthy, trying to build a business, and we're all kind of working together. We're supporting one another, and again, this sense of community, a sense of tribe, like connecting with other people that want to do the same thing as you. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And then I was like looking at like how does this like Adonis school work? And it's like a couple $100, or it's like it has like a monthly subscription. And I was
Yeah.
like, dang, bro, how do you afford that at 18? You know, like how does that
Yeah.
work? So, but
It's now like 500 up front and then like 100 a month. I think so. That's
oh, is it? That's the
before
pricing.
before it was only like 99 a month, and he recently changed, I think, to like upfront as well, which is probably like a good mechanism because like outside of people valuing it probably more and like retaining more, it didn't even impact like the conversion rate from the landing page. So he just made 4 5 times the amount of money on the first sale, while
Wow.
people probably get more value out of it. So it's a nice win-win. But yeah, those communities are great. Even with like the amount of people that I've gotten to know over the past year, and like how much value I've just gotten from being around these types of fellow entrepreneurs, and also just outside of getting value, it just being very cool to be with like-minded people. Like I think it's definitely like a powerful mechanism to tap into. It's the same with ClickFunnels, right? They have like funnel hackers that that kind of the term that they coined, like, right? It's just like a boring software. Yet they use this funnel hacking thing of like, hey, if you join us, you're a funnel hacker, like you're part of the family. So yeah, I think that's a same with Hormozy, right? He does like Mozy Nation, which to some extent it's kind of like it's not as powerful, I think, because then it's kind of like it's just like, I don't know. It sounds less like belonging creating, but either way, it's very powerful.
Hmm. Yeah. So this community that you're building, are you going to go down like the Hamza model? Is it going to be like a subscription based thing, or is it just going to be like open source where everyone can kind of just join and you all just intermingle and communicate with one another?
So this one is going to be open source. Open source, is that word? Did you just use
I
that?
guess so. Yeah, I don't
Okay,
know. It's in my
that's
vocabulary.
that's yeah. So just free group, like no upfront fee, no retainer. Um, I do think that's a cool model to monetize, but I don't want to monetize this specifically. What I think, because again, I think the implementation is so valuable. And specifically with my offer, like what I do is I use data and everything that I've learned to optimize someone's health as much as I can, and then just use the performance coaching to optimize that as I go. So I think the value comes from actually working with me at this moment, at least. Like later on, I might have more coaches. I might have a bigger infrastructure. Maybe I'll have like an AI assistant that does most of the work. Like who knows? I've looked into that. I have a friend who does that. But like, anyways, right now it's just me, and so it doesn't really make sense to just give like a community or a course. I think the community is a great tool to just get the people together who are on the same mission, start conversations that are actually genuinely coming from a place of like, hey, how can I help you? And then later on, the community is cool to combine with the actual offer, but just like the people that kind of like the alumni of the program, rather than, hey, send me $100 a month and you can get into this in this group.
Yeah, it's like an entry fee for getting into the club.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
what's that's kind of cool
it seems worth the
because
money. So
yeah, like I know that especially like young guys, right? If you don't have like a hero or someone to look up to or a really good father figure, you probably feel lost, right?
Hmm.
Especially if you want to escape like the corporate 9 to 5 world. And I hear this all the time from young people nowadays. It's like they don't want to do the corporate 9 to 5. They don't want to finish college. They don't want to go to university. They don't want to go down that route anymore, right? They want to,
Hmm.
be a content creator, be a podcaster, be a freelancer, do like something creative, do like work that gives them passion and fulfillment rather than grinding it out in an office for 40 years of your life with the reward of retirement at 65, right? Like that,
Hmm.
like so many people dread that possible outcome in their life. And I think guys like even like Andrew Tate, for example, this he's like this super polarizing figure, but even him, he's always trying to promote people like, hey, get in shape, take care of your business, be accountable, like
Hmm.
get to work, right? And I feel like that message is specifically really good for young men, right? Because I feel like we need that in our later teen years, right? Because I remember when I was 18,
Sure.
I was lost. Like I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I went to university, but I didn't care. Like, am I going to use this? I didn't love the work that I was doing. Like I was like so lost for so many years of my life. But Hormozy didn't exist back then.
Hmm.
Hamza didn't exist back then. Andrew Tate didn't exist back then. These influential people and YouTube didn't even exist when I was 18, right? Because that's like 2002. It was like even before YouTube. But now I feel like because of this information that people have, even like you, for example, like if there's a young guy out there that feels weak and insecure and unconfident and doesn't know how to, maybe he's like super skinny, doesn't know what to do at the gym. Like maybe like someone like you is perfect to get as a coach or as like a mentor, to give him direction in his life, right? And that's why I feel like all this content creation business stuff is extremely important because you're improving people's lives, right? And for me,
Sure.
that gives me a sense of meaning, and it's very fulfilling, right? When you help someone else out, it's like a great feeling. I don't know if you get that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's like my favorite moments of the week are like when a client messages me like, "Hey, just did this thing," right? Like the guy who went from literally told me like, "Ah, I'm number 25. Like I want to go higher," and he messages me end of the week, "I'm number 5 now." Like that's amazing. Like because it's for me it's kind of course it's like cool to kind of see that okay what I'm telling these people actually works, but it's also just yeah, like really humbling that I can like get to kind of yeah aid to someone else's journey and be kind of like a plus one in that.
Hmm. So, in terms of like your business, what can we expect from you in the future? Is there going to be a lot more YouTube videos? Is it going to be like a bigger social media presence? Are you expanding your website? What are you working on? What's the plans right now?
Mhm. Pretty much what you said. It's funny that you mentioned the website as well. So, well, okay. So for the entrepreneurs still listening, one very valuable concept that I've learned is the idea of demand capture versus demand generation. And so there's offers where, for example, you can go to most online business owners right now, and if you shoot them a message saying like, "Hey, I'll add 100K MRR to your business, guaranteed, or I'll pay you back double in the next 60 days," for example, most people who listen to that and who are go to your website and see that you have high believability to actually make that happen, they'll be interested in that offer. So that's a very much like a demand generation thing. With something like so with my offer, it's not completely demand capture. I have a better example. So a friend of mine, he now does something else, but he used to run a business that does TEDx coaching. So he helps people get basically TEDx, yeah, like TEDx speaking events. And so you can shoot messages to whoever you want. You could be like, hey, do you want to go and become a speaker at this TEDx thing? But the chance is very low that anyone's going to be interested in actually doing that, right? So it's very much a like Google Ads, SEO, maybe YouTube type of thing where people need to be interested in doing this thing. They need to think, hey, I would like to do a TEDx talk. How can I do this? They search it on Google or YouTube or wherever, and then they find you. And so with my health optimization offer, uh, so what I think is that it's probably like mostly demand capture, some demand generation, where a lot of people are interested in improving their health. It's just that I think that like using data and using it, also being more holistic about it, rather than being like, hey, I'll go to the gym and get you shredded, or fix your health, or I mean like your gut health or whatever, right? Like not just one area. I think with every single part of your body being impacted by one another, it needs to be every single area also being worked upon, because that's when you get the big shift in actual improvements. Because if your gut health is messed up and you start training very heavy, it doesn't really matter how hard you train and how well you sleep if you can't really absorb your nutrients. So that was a complete tangent. What was your question?
You were talking about like
Yeah,
the
channels.
website business.
Yeah. Sorry. So what I've come to conclude is that, so this is why I think that it's largely demand capture, but demand generation to some extent, because the people who invest in their health, they might still see that, hey, this method is superior to what I'm already doing, and therefore they'll want to take action. But I think it's largely, right, it's better to get in front of the people who are entrepreneurs who think like, hey, I need help with my health. Let's see what's out there. And so what I want to go heavier on is definitely YouTube. I want to start, because these like letters that I've been writing in Google Docs, just bombarding people with value. Like the reception of that has been very good. So I want to continue doing that. Just writing long form, kind of useful pieces of content on specific subjects. Keep the editing for now very simple, and just spit fire throughout the YouTubes. Do SEO as well, because that's kind of the same thing, right? Like YouTube and Google, like it's always your go to get more views as time goes on. It's not like Facebook or Twitter where you post something once, it might go viral, it might not, and then it disappears. And so I think that's very valuable. So YouTube, SEO, and then redistribute things through other content channels. But it all comes from this main piece of content that is focused on utility, rather than like 5 tips to do this, or like all of these kind of like short form type of pieces that you see on other types of social media channels that I think are not as sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think doubling down on the long form content is extremely beneficial, because you just can't give the same value in a 60-second short. You just can't. It's just not possible. Right? You can make it as information dense and tight and edit it as fast as you can, but it's still only 60 seconds. There's only so much value you can provide in those shorts. And even shorts, they'll blow up and then they just die the next day later, right? They're not like something, well, they can get discovered long term, but most of my shorts, they'll get picked up for an hour and then they're just dead, right? So you have to keep churning them out. Whereas like the long form YouTube videos, you can make something that has an immense amount of value, and it can sit there. And like you said, over time, it will start to pick up traction and browse or search or suggested, and it kind of builds that way. So sure. I'm kind of doing that as well.
Okay. Yeah, you build up the so there's this like 7 hours rule of marketing, right? Like where if people consume 7 hours of your content or see you for 7 hours, that's when they'll generally convert to becoming a client. And so if you try to do that through TikTok or Instagram, like they need to see literally like, I don't know a specific number, but like hundreds of your videos essentially before they are even interested in it. And if I look back at my own mentors that I've invested in, like purchases that I've made in general online, it's generally from people that I found on YouTube and I was like, okay, this is amazing. I started watching hours upon hours of all of their YouTube videos that were already out there. And then it was very easy for me to go on the call and just be like, hey, where can I give you my money, essentially? Right? Like whenever I went on a sales call with any of these people, it's never, they have to convince me on this. It's just like, okay, I need to figure this thing out, this thing out, this thing out. Cool, let's get started. Whereas with outreach or paid traffic, like a lot of these people are a lot colder. And so it's way more difficult to actually convert these people and get them to trust you. And it's also less enjoyable, I think, once again, because it's by these people that come to you on YouTube, watch all of your content, and then want to do business with you or want to get your help. It's already kind of cool because they already know you. You're already on good terms.
You sort of like built that trust or that
Hmm.
accountability or that integrity, right, with the channel. And
Yeah.
people like relate to that. But when it comes to, I guess, clients, what is the demographic for, I guess, for the people listening? Like, who is the group of people, the age range, like what their job is, what they're doing? Like, what is your demographic for your client? Like, what is your sort of client that you can really help out?
Hmm. So my client base is pretty diverse. They're pretty much, I've helped a few women, but it's mostly guys. And I think just, yeah, with my own background, right, like I'm not interested in like, how do you optimize like, the cycle with women, and like, I don't even, like, I barely know any of this stuff, right? But I do know how to optimize testosterone and all of this, because that's what I'm interested in. So that's why I think in that sense, I am most equipped to help other men. And I've worked with guys that are my age. Generally, they're slightly bit older, because that's generally, I think, like the kind of like entrepreneurial crowd. Um, I've worked with someone who I think is like 49, so it can definitely be a lot older as well. So yeah, basically guys 20 to 50 years old, doesn't really matter. Main thing is just, if you're an entrepreneur that is, because what I see time and time again is like, okay, entrepreneurs, they want to work hard to scale their business, and so they work really hard. They start to build up inflammation because they don't no longer care about their routines and their health, because they want to scale this business. So that's what they put all of their energy in. Because they
Mm.
focus all of their attention on this thing, now they start to neglect this other thing, which is the core to what keeps them consistent at a high level. And so then they get into this feedback loop where there are some people that I know they work hard for a few weeks, they neglect everything else, they burn out, they have to literally take a week off every few weeks to kind of regain energy. Then they restart the cycle of, okay, let's work hard again. And it's just a loop that goes on and on. And so, yeah, what I really work on with my clients is, okay, like how can we go to 80 to 90% consistency, rather than going to, most people go to 80%, then they dip to 20, then they go to 80 again, then they dip to 20. It's always kind of like an up and down spiral, which is, I think, especially common with entrepreneurs, where, your biggest battle is with yourself, I think.
Mm. Yeah, a bunch of entrepreneurs that I know, they're just like eating chips, ordering takeout food all the time. Like their
Hmm.
health is very poor, and that reflects in their work. I'm
For sure.
I'm thankful that I'm interested into fitness, because my even though I've been so busy with like my business and home life, my fitness level hasn't suffered too much. Like I don't
Nice.
go to the gym anymore as I used to, because now I have two kids, and so I can't leave the house because they're 1 and they're 3. So I take
Mm.
care of them in the morning, but that doesn't mean I can't do push-ups like in my living room. So I have this routine with my daughter who's 3. I'm like, I always ask her like, how many push-ups did you do today, Tiffany? And she's like, 2, 3. And she goes like this, and then we'll start doing push-ups in the living room. It's I can, and then she'll climb on my back, and I'm doing like weighted push-ups. So
Nice.
like physical health and fitness is so important for me, because when I have a late night where I gotta grind it out and make a YouTube video or a thumbnail. Like last night I recorded a video and I'm tired, right? I was with my kids all day. I was out in the sun. It was like 35 degrees. I was working outside. I was done.
Mm.
But then because you're healthy, you have energy, you can kind of push a little more, and then the business can keep going. And so I think that's a great message that you're trying to promote. Like, hey, don't neglect your health, don't neglect nutrition, don't neglect all these things while you build up your business, because they're incredibly important. They are the foundation for your success,
For
right?
sure. That's the same thing I see with like all the Hermos is kind of like an outlier, because he eats the ice cream every day and stuff, but he's still relatively healthy. But every person that I know personally that really does like like multiple like 100K or more a month, like that like serious amounts of money. Same as with like Alex Becker is a great like well known example. Like all of these people, they don't grind 24/7. They just work 8 to 12 hours a day, pretty much like any other person that does like that is very ambitious. But then they take all that other time and they focus on, okay, like how can I make my health better? Like how can I recover from this work that I just did, and how can I get my mental acuity as high as possible once again, so I can get ready to start and hammer this like next bout of intense production, rather than staying on the flywheel of, okay, I have this list of to-do lists, and it's probably like the most important things down here somewhere, and it's just one mess of nonstop work where not huge amounts of work get accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love it, dude. I love it. I got to. Unfortunately, I got to run. I got the
Okay.
kids are awake upstairs. But this was a great conversation, dude. I love catching up with you. Tell the people listening and watching where they can find your work: website, YouTube channel, socials, anything you want to promote. Where can people find Jasper?
Sounds good. Yeah, so I guess the most important thing for people listening, I presume you really like to enjoy or watch like YouTube videos. So yeah, my YouTube, Jasper the Muynck. So that's Jasper, DEMUYNCK, with like health optimization behind it. That's my YouTube channel. Really, yeah, looking to post a lot more on there, and have been recently. That's the main one. Website is navigateso.rs, where my actual product can be found and what we actually do for people. I'm pretty much on any type of social media posting content, but yeah, YouTube is the place to get the sauce. And there should be a community there as well that I'm going to be growing out for the long term, because that's what we're doing here, long-term thinking. And so if you want to get a group of people that actually are optimized, that are looking to improve their health, they're kind of all looking to grow their health together, then that would be the place, definitely in the next few years.
All right, beautiful. I love it. All right, guys, everyone's listening, watching. Check the description. I'll leave links to all of Jasper's stuff that he mentioned. Check him out. If that's something that interests you. All right, Jasper, thanks again for doing the pod, and we'll catch up again in the future. Do another one, right, and see how things are going.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
Peace.